The realities of today's trucking are that operating costs are too high, living costs are too high, the freight rate is too low, and the freight is getting difficult to find. One of the toughest decisions truckers may have to make is knowing when to cut their losses, change their business plan, or perhaps find a different job altogether. It's a tough decision, but owner-operators, independents, and even company drivers may have to face that decision. This video is sponsored by GP Transco. Operating and living costs always trend upwards, and usually the wages don't keep up with how quickly that trends. It's not unusual for people, drivers, the older they get, to want to show that they've done better for themselves, and they do that by accumulating more stuff. And sometimes you can accumulate so much stuff that it hurts a little when you've got payments to make on all that stuff. And the business situation can turn around in the blink of an eye, and all of a sudden you're in financial trouble and you've got to make a change. I've seen this happen to so many friends of mine, I've lost count of how many. But oftentimes they could have saved themselves if they had cut their losses early and changed their game plan before they got too far into debt. Let's look at 3 different examples of how company drivers, owner-operators, and even independents can get themselves into trouble and need to have to cut their losses. Let's start with the company driver. And for the sake of relevancy, let's say that the driver works for Yellow Corporation. He's got a house with a mortgage, a brand new pickup truck. He's in good shape financially, and 2 years ago when he bought that pickup truck, he didn't see this impending strike at Yellow coming. And frankly, who would? But suddenly he's faced with a situation that he could be out of a job next month. So he's got to make some changes. He can't get rid of his mortgage. He needs his house. It's a tough decision to make, but perhaps he's going to have to let that new pickup truck go. You can always buy another pickup truck later. He should cut his losses and chop the vehicle. Our second example, an owner-operator. He's been leased on with the trucking company, and he's been doing very well. He's been there for a few years. He's got a mortgage. He's got a family. He's got bills. And all of a sudden, the carrier chops the rate. The fuel's already too high. The wages haven't been great, but they've been getting by. But now the carrier cuts the rate, the fuel hasn't dropped, and this owner-operator is in trouble. Something's got to change. He's got to make a cut somewhere. It's hard to know where to do it. If he's got payments on his truck, he's got to replace the drive tires, and his emission system quits, let's say. All of a sudden, new tires, repair on an emission system, he's underwater by $18,000 easily, just like that. Time to cut your losses, get rid of the Cascadia that's costing you the money, go back to being a company driver. It's better than going under. Credit card debt is too easy to accumulate and far too difficult to pay off. Don't put it on the credit card, cut your losses, get rid of the truck. Trucking is tough right now, but GP Transco still has lots of freight. They're a great carrier to work for. First-year drivers make between $80,000 and $95,000 a year. They've got a W-2 package, full benefits, 401k with a kick-in from the company, and they hire owner-operators as well. Check them out at gptransco.com. Let's look at our third scenario, an independent. He's got an older truck and trailer. It's all paid for, but still he's got a mortgage, he's got a new vehicle, things are going all right. He's got a couple of direct customers, and he usually uses a load broker for his backhaul. Now, one of the direct customers all of a sudden starts to slow down. He hasn't been busy. The other direct customer wants to chop his rate because he's got someone knocking at the door, wants to cut that independence rate, and that happens all the time. Nothing good ever changes. There's always someone trying to chop the rate. The load broker pays too slow, the freight's too cheap. You can't rely on the load broker to keep you busy. Thank goodness you've got the truck and the trailer paid for. You can manage everything else. Probably it's time in a situation like this, when the freight is so cheap, the fuel is so high, put the truck and trailer in the yard, park it, maybe go drive a company truck for somebody, or maybe even just stay home and work on the family farm. It's better than running up huge debt, huge credit card debt especially. It's not worth it. Cut your losses early. Do not go under. Live to fight another day. Debt can be a killer in trucking. Let's look at Yellow Corporation, for instance. They're huge, but they kept accumulating debt year after year. And they could find bankers and other people to keep propping them up, and they kept on going. But the debt was killing them. And here they are, 20 or 25 years later, after they started accumulating the debt, finally, they're in serious trouble. They haven't been able to keep up with all the payments on the debt. The debt is what's going to put Yellow under. And they're a huge carrier. It can happen to anybody. Debt is the killer. The old timers used to say, no sense throwing good money after bad. And what that means is there's no point accumulating debt, investing more money into something when it's just going to drag you down later. It's already dragging you down. You put more money into it, it just drags you down further because you can never catch up. And that's the whole name of this game. You cannot accumulate too much debt. Credit card debt especially is far too easy to accrue and far too difficult to pay back later. You've got to know when to cut your losses and live to fight another day. You've got to be able to survive in business, and sometimes knowing when to park it is the best decision you can make to save yourself some money in the long run. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, and I'll see you on the back haul.